Welcome, everybody, to Huddle Up with Matias Bueno. Today's guest is the offensive coordinator of the Hamilton Tiger Cats, Tommy Condell. Tommy, thanks so much for being on today's episode. I'm really glad that you had the time to be able to join us.
Well, I'm excited. The only thing I might have to preface this whole thing by is, we are doing some online schooling, and I have four young boys. So, I can't, I don't know if, a couple of them are to be storming in. So I can only apologize first and foremost.
Oh, that's no problem, especially with the little ones taking care of school. It reminds me of that. There was an old news clip of a guy in the UK who was doing a broadcast from home, and his son walked in the room and asked him a question. He just kind of walked out, and it was really, really funny. So
Well, they've been, we're a football family to a degree. Now, so we have one son that loves football, loves it, and then the other ones have their own interests, but they all probably can answer the questions, and probably a little bit better than I could.
well, to get things started off, so with like CFL free agency has just been absolutely crazy with some of the big names that have traded places, so to speak, in the last 24 hours with Toronto and Ottawa. But you guys have been able to retain lots of the main core players during a free agency period. What is the mindset in terms of you as a coach that may not necessarily have as much say, maybe as like a GM or as a head coach, in terms of dealing with the personnel decisions that are made? How do you handle this period?
Well, we do, we gel together with that. I think Sean Burke and all the guys that do, are handling that. We're all aligned as best we can, and we certainly have a lot of back and forth on what kind of players that we are looking for and what we like and what we need, particularly for this offense and particularly for the defense and anything else like that. So when we have those discussions and so we're aligned, it's not so much that we're all of a sudden, I think the famous saying, like, we got to cook the meal, but we're not able to buy the groceries. That's not true. What's great about it is we all have roles to play, and Sean's done a tremendous job in regards to, signing the players and the core players that we have, and has done a tremendous job of keeping those guys up in the forefront. And really, I'm more in the back and just really agreeing with a lot of the stuff. And we'll have our discussions with Coach Orlando, and that's how we do it.
And that's very important, I'm sure, in terms of being able to create and replicate success you guys have with being on the same page and having a lot of unity in the locker room and in the front office and with the coaching staff. Because having stability, you look at the CFL, it's only a 9-team league right now, but how many teams go back to back or repeat success like crazy? There's not many. And having that core stability is so important to being able to continue to keep up that level of high wins.
I think, I agree with you. The sustainability is the key. We always talk about the consistent ascent to that mountaintop, but that mountain changes yearly, because every team changes. We bring back the core guys, certainly, but there's going to be new people. There's people that are going to leave every year. That's just football. That's professional football. So you always, that new mountain, those new challenges that come, you have to be adaptable, right? And that's going to be one of our core tenets anyways. And so, to be able to put the guys that are coming in from free agency or the newer players, let us be that from the negotiation list or from the Canadian draft that Drew Alamain does is so great, is they're immersed in the culture, and Coach Orlando, does a phenomenal job by stating what those core tenets are. And then as we progress through it, and from, myself, Jeff Reinbold, and Mark Washington, with what, we term our subcultures, is to be the Paul Revere, so to speak, to give those another information pathway during all of our, let's be our install meetings and our reactions. I think our language is really important. We have to listen to our language. I remember, Mark Trestman said something that I learned a lot from from Coach Trestman. And one of the things that he always harped on was that words matter, and they certainly do, and they carry a lot of weight. And we're very conscientious of the words that we use, and also the discussions that we have from the day-to-day operations between, let it be from coach to coach, coach to player, player to coach, strength coach to ourselves, to the training staff with Claire. You know, we're very conscientious of the conversations that we have that happen in that building.
And especially someone like Mark Trestman has such a powerful impact on his organization, his staff, in all the places he's been in the CFL. Did you get to work with Coach Trestman when you guys were in Toronto together?
Yeah, yes. You know, I got a chance to work with him a couple years, and the great thing is the way the office is that we had like an open environment, and that open environment, you know, there was all these desks here. So for 2 years, I got to sit figuratively, literally right next to him. So, you know, I got a chance to just kind of lean over and see what he was looking at, or discussions. He would tap me on the shoulder. So that was a great experience, you know, not only to get a chance to see how he does as a head coach and implements his system as a head coach, being really the offensive play caller. So it was a great time for my development, and I can't thank him enough.
So when working alongside someone like Mark Trestman as an offensive minded coach, what are some of the main takeaways that you try to develop or ensure that you receive during the brief period of time that you're with them? Because obviously coaching changes can be as frequent, sometimes if not faster, than player changes in the CFL.
You know, the great thing that for myself, when I got a chance to work with Mark, was I was older, and older meaning experienced in that regard. And so I was able to get the questions that I had all throughout really answered, you know, because meaning is, you know, he was involved, you know, in the West Coast offense for all those years, and also with the guys that were part of that, meaning the genesis of it, Bill Walsh and all George Seifert that he worked with and all that. So all those questions that I had because even before, we had some West Coast principles, and also some run and shoot principles, and also some really, I guess you would say, more option football in regards to pass options and stuff like that. But so we ran them, but there's also some intricacies, and there's some like keys to the vault, right, that you get from that particular person. And then to be able to get there and know some of the problems that you experienced from running those plays, implementing those plays, and those specific questions that I already experienced the problem and the issues that I could ask him directly. And then his wealth of knowledge was that. And then, you know, to parlay it into going to Hamilton, and for those couple of months to work with June Jones and I was, as I alluded to earlier, in some run and shoot principles. And then with him, I was able to do the same thing, to be able to get those keys to the vault, so to speak, on some of the things with the run and shoot that were all the intricacies in regards to the receivers, the quarterback eye fixes, and stuff like that. So it was a tremendous honor to really get to see those guys and learn from those guys at that stage of my development, where early on, sometimes it was baptism by fire. You know, you're gonna certainly learn, and you're gonna make mistakes, and those mistakes you really want to analyze and look at, so you don't have to make you don't want to ever make the same mistake over again. And so as we progressed, and then I got a chance to work with those two, I was able to really skip through some parts and really delve into the intricacies of each pattern, each route, each concept. It was great.
And you talk about baptism by fire when you become such a young coach in the CFL. That alludes into our next point about you getting your start here in the CFL all these years ago. back in the late 90s, working under Jeff Reinbold with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers here in Manitoba. And that must have been just a crazy experience in terms of being super young. I mean, you're still a very young coach in terms of the demographic of coaches, but to have been someone around the age of myself, 24, 25, just starting to work with a professional organization like Winnipeg during a very exciting time for their offense, maybe not overall in terms of the team success, but having had Milt as a part of your receiving core, and then Giro and some of the other guys that started to join. What was that whole experience like being in Winnipeg, and what did that time in your life mean for you in terms of being a young man and trying to get experience coaching pro football?
Well, it was the biggest thing when we went there. When I got to go there, I really went there as a guest coach, and all I wanted to do was learn, and I was an open book, and I certainly was just there to do whatever role was asked for me. If I was supposed to go get coffee, by God, I was going to get the best coffee that I could get. And to try to do any job that they asked me better than they thought that it would be. And that just kind of parlayed it more and more. And there were coaches that were open to it, like Joe Papa was there as the offense coordinator, Pat Perlis, as the O-line guy and that kind of thing. So, and then with Jeff, getting a chance to really work with him in the special teams, because he was the special teams. He was going to take over the special teams and he guided me in that realm. Now some lessons were hard to learn, and I remember there are so many, but just the, like if I wasted any part in time because the cards weren't color coded in the correct way or anything of that nature, he really challenged me as a young coach. But really the big thing was I didn't have all the answers then, and I still don't have all the answers now, but to be authentic and be honest, that was the key, because I would always say to them, listen, I'm not going to have all the answers, and I'm not going to know, and I'm not going to BS you. I'm just going to tell you I don't know, but I can guarantee I'm going to go find out that answer if I don't know it. And so being 24, 25 at that time with that experience, I can't thank Jeff enough to be able to get in front of the group, get in front of the team, really, besides the head coach with all of them, and then to work on the communication skills that you need to get in front of them, to give them information, to get them better, and Jeff helped that, and certainly I made a lot of mistakes, but it was truly a learning experience. And it was easy for them to, I think, help me along, because I knew, and they knew, that I was going to be diligent, and I certainly was going to do whatever they asked me to do and do it in the right way and be tactful in my questions and honestly just be able to be a sponge and to put the information forward in the right way.
And it's crazy how the coaching world and carousel is so closely tied together in the CFL and NFL, of course. And now Coach Reinbold is again in charge of special teams with the Hamilton Tiger Cats organization. You guys are on the same coaching staff again and being able to work together. So what are those interactions like with Jeff, when you guys, after being the young Turk in Winnipeg and him challenging you to now being closer together as a part of the same organization and in roles that are different and similar in ways? How do you handle that dynamic after all these years?
Well, Jeff and I have a great relationship. We've known it's been over 20 years now. So I've known Jeff for all this time, and he's gotten a chance. I always say that he's got a lot of times either take credit or take blame for a lot of my history of what, because he's been every step of the way. So even when I left Winnipeg and got back into the NCAA and college football, it was funny. We would stay connected. And then when he went to at different places, like when he went to Louisiana Tech, I was just down the road at ULM, and he would come watch me and let it be during spring or something like that, even when I was coaching, and he would critique me then, and now it's, it's a mentorship, certainly in that, but also now we're obviously, friends, and I love working with Jeff. We've had a lot of team success, with Orlando, Jeff, myself, and now Mark Washington. So it's a great honor to be a part of the staff and to go ahead and look across the way a lot of times in the meetings and see Jeff Reinbold, is always a pleasure and always a great chance to always, I still can get after him a little bit and, have some fun with him because I know some, stories and things of that nature. Of course, he knows a lot of stories about me for 20 years, so it's a lot of fun.
So what would you say was one of the most challenging experiences that you had during your time in Winnipeg as a coach, and what did you learn from being in a challenging environment, or maybe or in that environment during that challenging experience?
I think the first thing is when you're young, you don't know. It's a new experience. A lot of those experiences are new, so you don't know exactly what it's going to be or how it's going to be. So that was a challenge. It was certainly a challenge to be able to implement a game plan, learn the CFL in the special teams realm, which was totally different than what I was used to. Yeah, and Jeff was able to help and help me with that and challenge me with that. But that was the biggest thing. But to be able to communicate and also know that there were going to be mistakes, that I would make at that age. I was just going to continue to look for that, to get better, whatever it may be. I wanted to get better every single day. Let it be from the special team side, let it be assisting Joe Papaw in any way as the offensive side. So I think that energy, that enthusiasm, that passion that I had really overcame the lack of knowledge that I had. And then ultimately I started getting better and better, and that knowledge did progress and my ability to communicate improved. So I look back on that. That was probably the biggest challenge of learning the game and also learning to communicate with individuals that were going to be, my age and honestly much older, and to be able to gain that respect in the realm of delivering them their information. And the way you can gain that respect is to be able to be honestly authentic. You need to be passionate about what you do, have a lot of energy and enthusiasm, and then you have to be able to get better daily, and I certainly challenged myself for that. And it was a tremendous experience in Winnipeg, and having, I look back and see, and I always see Milt during the TSN broadcast. So it's always fun to see Milt and just kind of go back, and we both laugh at all those times. But I think those were the key things that I did when I was challenged.
You mentioned being able to establish respect in that relationship with players who most of the time are always going to be older than you, with a few exceptions. So, and you've been known through different articles and news bits about now developing yourself as a player-oriented coach, and whether it be when Jeremiah went down and you had to work with Dane more, or whether it be working with both of them or whatnot. How have you developed, or how did you learn to develop strong relationships with players throughout your career, especially knowing that players may come and go, especially when you were in the college ranks, like someone like Luke Tasker? There was no guarantee you were going to work with him again. So how do you do that?
Yeah, I think it comes down to, and I talked about it earlier, but building authentic relationships and knowing what that success looks like, and the importance of that before you can, really, you can give them knowledge, you can continue to get them better as players, but the building blocks is that relationship of authenticity. And once that happens, because we're the ultimate teachers, in my opinion. And I certainly want to give them the knowledge as best I can, and try to gain and source that PhD level knowledge with that growth mindset for me and to deliver it to them into the correct way, however they learn, like all the, from the, how they're going to learn, from, let it be any methodologies that we have in the different mediums, but to be able to ultimately all of a sudden, the teacher is teaching the student, but then the student's going to become the teacher. And that's the mindset that I have when I'm dealing with players, and it builds from that and it grows from that. And then we always talk about iron sharpens iron, and we're here to get to, better together. And that's where I think all the, the player, when people say, hey, he's a player's coach, that is in a nutshell what I believe what that really signifies. Is just the authentic relationships we're going to build into them. We certainly care about them as people, and also to get them better as players and men at the same time. And they both correlate.
And that sentiment must be very strong within the locker room and the coaches' room in Hamilton, considering that Mark Washington has very similar principles with his philosophies from when he was with BC and now with Hamilton, and Coach Orlando also, again, another very, very young head coach, and that bond must be so almost unbreakable in a way, and must be, in order to really relay that message to players, because when new guys come in, it could be challenging to get people to buy in, and sometimes you don't know what guys' previous experience may be, but I'm sure that those principles that you carry within yourself translate to others, and they ensure that your team is able to stay successful and stay in tune with the philosophies that you guys preach in the locker room and just in the organization as a whole.
Yeah, Orlando does a great job, in regards to, in one of the ways is, like any head coach is wants to gain people on the staff and to be able to align themselves with the people that have a lot of the same thoughts and the same thought process. So, and he has done that, to have Jeff and Mark and all all the other guys. And I think what happens as well is that you want to, like I talked about earlier about the student becomes a teacher. It's, there's not like one leader, we're building leaders as it progresses. And the best teams are going to be the ones that have the leaders in the locker rooms. They're going to hold the team accountable. They're going to hold the team accountable to the standards that they're going to have for that year. Because just like I said, the players change per year. The team is actually going to change per year. The standards are going to change. Are they going to have, so we have to grow from that, and we have to start from, everyone's going to start the same proverbial, base camp, if you will, and we're going to climb that mountain, and that mountain's going to change every year, because it's not going to be the same. It's not going to be the same journey that we're going to have. There's going to be adversity that comes along that are going to take different shapes and sizes. New players are going to come in, and they're going to see how we react and how we interact as coaches and coaches and players, and how we communicate to them, and the respect that we have for their job that they do, and the respect that they have the job for what we do, but we're doing it all together. So I think that's the first thing that Orlando has done, is really gotten people to align to his vision. And it makes it a lot easier when all of a sudden everyone's pulling the same rope, and actually pulling and rowing the same way, where you don't have one person that's trying to row this way. So he does a great job in also, and then having points during the year, let's say in the off season, for those growth, and to make sure that we're all aligned, in regards to some of the leadership things that we've done. Mark did it the same way, did it a little bit different in regards to that as Mark in Toronto from a leadership style. But, we're building leaders, and there's not just one, there's just not 3 or 4. There's anyone can be, and we're hoping that they're going to be also obviously the players. So when the new players come in, they see them and they're also accountable to each other. And that's when you're going to have a good football team.
So in terms of leadership, then, you've been able to work with several different quarterbacks and several different players who at different points in your career have kind of been along the same path and realigned on back in the same path as yourself. So who would you say are some of the strongest leaders that you've coached, and what are some of the main qualities they possess that make them strong leaders?
You know, there's, you know, it's interesting. Leadership takes on, and I'm thinking about different players. You know, like leadership doesn't have to be just, you know, the rah guy or an individual that talks all the time. You know, there's some individuals that just show by example. You know, but all of them have a work ethic that is unmatched. They're going to work hard. You know, they're going to be there day in and day out and to do the little things. You know, that's the one thing that's always been the case and also that same one they produce at critical times, you know, and that's part of it. I think, like I said, I think of a couple different ones I've seen even on our football team now. You know, I see the quarterbacks, they all they have a leadership skill that are a little bit different. And then you have on the, you know, some on the defensive side, we're bringing energy and passion, you know, like I was like Simone. I mean, he's a guy that brings that energy and passion, but he leads in that way, you know. And then there's a guy that can be very silent, doesn't say a word. I mean, Ricky Ray didn't say a word, you know, but, you know, Ricky Ray was a leader because of the things that he did on and off the field. I mean, so I think leadership takes on a lot of times, but you need to be authentic, certainly, you know, and you got to be a hard worker and you've got to produce at critical times.
And someone like Ricky Ray, you mentioned, has produced at the most critical times throughout his entire CFL career. He is truly one of the greatest to have ever done it. And even with Toronto, with Edmonton, it was truly awesome to see all the games that he played in growing up as a kid, and how even, like, I'm sure you remember, or many CFL fans remember, the 2005 Grey Cup, Edmonton, Montreal, BC Place, the double OT nail biter that went right down to the wire. And I think it was the 3rd and 5 deep shot to the left sideline at Jason Tucker, was it? That it was that play. I'm thinking that was, we're like, oh my goodness,
Ricky,
5, here we go. Like,
Ricky's like this now. I don't know if I've ever seen him really get too excited, you know, and like his emotional, he's just this. He's a flatliner. You know, he can throw a touchdown or an interception, and I don't really think you could see the difference, you know, with him. You know, but other guys are different, you know, and long as you're comfortable in your own shoes, that's the key, you know. And to see people like, you know, Jeremiah and Dane, you know, those guys lead in a different way, you know, and they gather their respect because of how they handle their situations, how they communicate with their teammates, and they're real and they work, you know. And I mean, they can't get enough of football, you know, and we're very fortunate to have that. And then it was great to see, you know, Speedy. You know, Speedy is you know, I was able to see him when he came into the league, and he's progressed not only as a football player, but as a leader as well. And you could see, you know, that when you see him on the practice field, I mean, there's not a day off. You know, I mean, he's going fast, you know, and he's working. And that speaks volumes to everyone. Volumes. Like, for any player that comes in, I mean, you're seeing the MOP and the way he's going to handle himself, and he's going to go out and practice and work his tail off. And no matter what you ask him to do, you know, meaning this, he might be the primary receiver on this particular route concept, and he's going after it. And then he's an individual that's got to blow the top off of that coverage, right? And that he's more of a canceller, and he is running at full speed. And that you don't see the difference. That speaks volumes. I mean, the guy's taking garbage out with a smile, like I say, you know. I mean, it doesn't matter. And those are the things leaders do, and they're able to, they have a role and they play that role so effectively. And those are just some of the guys that jump out at me, that are different leaders, but leaders.
You mentioned Brandon Banks, you mentioned Dane Jeremiah, all these guys that have had a lot of success with Hamilton, albeit Hamilton's still now with, I guess, the longest active drought without winning the Grey Cup since '99, way back in the day. But you guys have come close several times, even last year and in your first tenure. It's a difficult feeling, of course, because no one likes losing. Everyone, your goal when you step on the practice field day one, every year, win the Grey Cup, period, end of story. That's the attitude that, as a professional, you should be carrying. So as a coach, when you deal with these difficult losses or games, what's the first thing that you would say? Like, what was the first thing you said to Dane after you saw him when you got down from the booth after the Grey Cup? Well, how would you handle that situation?
Well, from the immediacy of it, and right after it, you have to console, but there's really not a lot of things to say to a lot of hard work is put into it, and we didn't get it done. And what happens later on, the immediacy of is, hey, it's fresh, is you give the credit to the team that won it, but I certainly don't like seeing what's behind you, that championship hat. I don't like seeing that, I'd rather have it over here, but so the immediacy is to give all the credit to the other team as well, and for what they did and take responsibility for our own actions after that game. And after that, once that immediacy goes, because everyone's going to deal with it differently, all the players are going to, and coaches, everyone's going to deal with defeat differently. And you have to give them and others space in how to deal with that. And then after that, now you need to really delve deep and look at the opportunities that were missed, look at the adjustments that you did or didn't make, things that came up that you could have done a lot better job of, and not shy away from it, and not look for excuses why it did or didn't happen. You got to peel back that onion, so to speak, and it's not pretty sometimes, right? But you want to look at it analytically and see it, and then once you find those things that you could have improved on, things that you didn't take advantage of, or things that you missed, then you critically analyze them, and then you're going to get better. That's the only time. That's the time when you need to do it. You can't just brush it aside or push or point any fingers, so to speak, to something else or some outside source. You need to look at it critically with an eye of your own responsibility. And we certainly did it. And personally, I certainly did that. And I do that with every game, though. I'll say that. It's not just really one game or the final game. It's every game. Every game and every play, win or lose, and whatever success, is you're still looking at that and seeing why. Because even if you have success on a particular play concept, why did we have that success? Was it because, from the defensive structure? Was it on rhythm? Was it not? Why? Was it an off-schedule play and we still had success? Maybe the stats said it was a success, but really, for the last 4 times that we called it, we really didn't have why. And kind of, is it, when was it called? How did I implement that play? What were the words that I did to describe the intent of that play? And so those are the things that you got to look at and take responsibility first and foremost for that, and look at it really in depth. And it's not easy sometimes, no one wants to look at some things Or it's not easy because things have been successful. You kind of just, oh, that's been success. No, you've got to look at it why, and see why. So I try to take success and failure in the same regards in the realm of how we are going to look at it analytically. Now, the emotions of it, obviously we always want to win, but in the same token, that's why the game of football is so awesome. You get a test every week, right? And it's either pass or fail. There's no in between, and that's what makes it awesome. And then to be able to get 12 guys from an offensive standpoint to work together and to execute a game plan and to see if, oh, geez, what didn't we do in order to execute that game plan, or what did we do? And then all the variables that come along, because every game's different, every game is different. There's things that align that are different, like that come into it, let it be weather, scheme, matchups, people, it's calls, it's awesome. So to me, you can't just look at it. It's a lot of fun for everyone else to kind of, they played them, last week and they killed them. It's going to be this way, or the other team, played Ottawa this tough, or this team played it. It's every game is unto itself. And that's what makes this game absolutely amazing. And then for Orlando to do such a great job for all that year to get, what was it, 16 wins total for the season, to be able to get all those people all rowing at the same time for those games. Hey, 12 on offense, 12 on, and then talking about special teams, the coaches. I mean, to coalesce that all together, it's an exciting profession. I love it. It's challenging and it's always changing, which makes it a lot of fun. Now, sometimes you're on the other side of it, but the main thing is to be able to improve, and and like I said earlier, I really don't want to make the same mistake twice. I really don't.
Yeah, there's so many great things you mentioned, especially with dealing with the wins and losses and how people who are fans or people who bet or whatever have all the probabilities and statistics.
Yeah.
But in reality, all that goes out the window as soon as the first, the gun sounds and the ball's kicked off. Because if you look at it from, oh, well, you guys beat Winnipeg really bad 2 times in the regular season, so it must mean you're going to win the Grey Cup. And some people are thinking that, or because this team didn't do, like Winnipeg had never won in Calgary, that they weren't going to do this, right? But obviously, you look at what happened, and I'm sure even before you got to the Grey Cup, you were looking on the side and said, oh, wow, look, they beat Calgary by 21 points. When was the last time that happened? Probably when I was a young man back in Winnipeg, or even younger man back in Winnipeg. And that was around the last time I remember seeing that happen. So that's what makes football so fun. You're 100% correct. And also that's what makes being a coach challenging, is that there's no guarantees because you beat one team one day that you're going to do it the exact same the next day or the next year, right? Like things change so much. So like, that's just, it must be very stressful at times, I'm sure, to know that there's got to be on your game.
I think your adaptability and adaptation needs to be in your DNA, right? You have to be able to, I would say, identify anything that comes out, identify, understand, and communicate it now, right? And communicate that change that you're going to do. So, I mean, it's, you gotta love the change about it, and you gotta be comfortable in change. You gotta be comfortable being uncomfortable, and that's the key. And if you're not, and you're just going to try to control every situation, it's an illusion of control. Now we try to do it in the realm of, hey, putting them in the best possible situation, but every game's different. Mike Tyson says everyone's got a plan until someone gets hit in the mouth, and that's true. You have this plan, and but you also have to see how it progresses. And, during the game, you have to see in the reactions and the interplay, you have the game within the game. And you got to play, the cards that are dealt, and you try to dictate a lot of that tempo, and you try to dictate some things, but ultimately it's also to be able to adapt and change. And we believe that that's got to be in your DNA, and it's got to be coached, and it's got to be practiced.
That's 100% correct. And that's what being a professional coach is all about, being able to change and adapt, and even just as a player. And I like the phrase you use, the game within the game, because you see teams, I think you guys did it, and Ottawa did it the year before, where you score first and now we're going for two. And, you know, or it's a bit quirky sometimes. We're doing things that they make the other team think. It's like chess, right? Like it's like chess, but more exciting, and there's hitting, and guys are flying around, and it's not just sitting down at a table watching a bunch of little pieces of marble move around.
So, oh, there's no doubt. I mean, the game within the game is, you know, even all the decisions that that you make as a coordinator, but also as and ultimately as a head coach. You know, you've got to decide that sometimes, you know, you always want the you know, I guess you always want the plays to end. You want to, you know, always in the series of offense, you want to end with a kick. We will say, you know, I mean, let it be an extra point. You know, you don't want to turn the ball over. And there's times within the game of playing field position and going for two and doing those kinds of things. That's what makes it great. But you got to be aware of it. You got to see it. And you know, Coach O does a great job, and also with the rest of the staff, I think, and to be able to gather information, let it be from Jeff Reinbold, from a field position sense, wind, everything that else comes along with, you know, because Tim Hortons Field is the best place to play, you know, and it's a little windy, you know, and to be able to, you know, play within those confines and to understand that. I mean, those are the things. And then to parlay it into decisions that, you know, you're not, you know, there's times even as a play caller, you can, you know, there might be some other plays that you want to call, but during the wind, during the way the whole thing is flowing, the game, you've got to be able to, hey, we're going to do this because, hey, the defense is playing very, very well. We're not going to take it a chance, so to speak. And now all of a sudden, hey, we're going to take it, what the defense gives us. Okay, we have to kick it. Great. Or on the flip side, like you were saying, being bold. And ultimately, I would say, you know, Orlando and the Hamilton Tiger Cats were very bold in that regard, you know, but it's bold, but not frivolous, you know what I mean? And those are the things that all coincide with the game within the game. And I think Orlando does a great job with that.
So we're getting towards the end of our time, and I wanted to ask you a few more questions to wrap up before we go. And so the first question that I want to ask in parting is, what is the most memorable game that you've been a part of in the CFL? I know this one there might be so many that come to in the CFL, your entire career in the league, most memorable one that comes to mind.
Oh gosh. I think, you know, one of the first ones were when we 2013, like I kind of have to do them by year. Like, so 2013, you know, to be able to go into the Grey Cup. We were at the Eastern Final. We were playing in Toronto at the Sky Dome there, and that dome was packed with Ticat fans. It was awesome, you know. And Henry Burris was our quarterback, and we were able to go in and defeat Ricky Ray and the crew there. I thought that was great. Just to see, you know, it was our first year there, and just to see the players and how they progressed, and as coaches did too, and to see the fans there, and to win it and then go on to the Grey Cup. I thought that was great. And then I say, you know, like 2000, I think it was 2014 when we first got into Tim Hortons Field. And that was amazing. You know, the first touchdown that was scored by Bakari Grant. I still remember we called, it was and for him winning, getting that touchdown and handing it to our owner, Bob Young. And so that was one. Golly. And then even, and then 2000, and then coming back on 2019, our first game here, and we played Sask. It was awesome just to be able to, be back and to be in Tim Hortons Field again. So, I mean, there's a bunch of, I know I'm missing a few, but those will jump right out at me that come to it, being a part of something bigger than myself, and to see it and share it with the fans that are so deserving here, and you alluded to that, we're going to certainly do our best and work our tails off and to put ourselves in a position to be in the Grey Cup and bring home the championship here in Hamilton. And it's because the fans here are great, and they trust me, I think about them, and we live around town. Obviously we live, 15 minutes away from Hamilton, not even, in Ancaster. So, and we're immersed in the community with my boys and my wife. And, I just, there's no sense of entitlement. They're diligent, that's the culture here. It's a blue collar mentality, humble and hardworking. So, and that's what I want to teach my sons. And the best thank you that we can give them is a Grey Cup championship. And we are certainly working towards it.
And that leads into my next question that I wanted to ask is, what has been to you your most proud moment so far as a football dad, and whether it be in Hamilton or whether it be when you were in Toronto?
Football for a family, yeah, that's a tough question. That's a good question. It's tough because a football family, not meaning, that everyone's gun-ho football. My family's, with the four boys and my wife, they all have their own interests, and we certainly want to promote that, but in the same sense, football takes because it's such a big component from, just the time spent, and dad being away in regards to, the working and things of that nature. So there's an investment for the family, and the wins and losses, certainly I do want to always come home, no matter if it's a win or a loss, and be the same dad that I can be. And for the most part, I do a good job. There are probably a few that I don't, but I think the best, certainly is having them around in practice and being able to come off the field. Our culture here in Hamilton is, a lot of people say, hey, we're a family atmosphere. Yeah, but they really don't want to see the kids in the office, but that's not the case. My kids get to come in that building on the field if they need to help and during the game and to be immersed. There's not one particular moment, I'd say. They're all the little moments that I can look at practice, look after the game, and they're there, and they're supportive. And it's awesome to have the organization, that honestly, like Scott Mitchell and Orlando, let that happen, and be able to let them be a part of it, because that's not always the case. And I'm very thankful to that. And it's awesome to see at any moment that they're coming down the hall. Now, a lot of them are, taking candy from Coach O's big bowl he has, so they're high on candy at the time I see them. But it's that I guess it's the surprise. It's a surprise that they can come in there and they feel comfortable to come in there. That doesn't happen a lot at a lot of places, but they feel comfortable being able to come into that building when they want to and surprise me, and that's a special gift.
And especially as a father and as a coach, being able to have those two things intertwined is supposed to be so amazing. I think that's one of my favorite things to see on television after big games, or even just regular games, seeing someone there, like coach or player there with their family, or being able to, see their kids sprinting down the sideline and be able to pick them up and, give them a hug, or to see them like throwing the football around. Those were some of my favorite things when I was a football player, was seeing, if when I was in high school, our coach, his son was very, very young, and he would always like run around and try to like kick the ball to me back and forth. And then as I got older, I ended up, being able to officiate some of his basketball games. And he was like, "Oh, I remember when we were, this team," and the kids have such a great memory, right? Like they're the ones that like they're in tune and they know all the answers and they're on top of it, right? And sometimes like, "Oh, I can't remember." Like, "No, it was this game this year." Blah blah blah. Like it's so surprising sometimes. I can't believe it.
Luke is like that. Luke really has the sickness for football, I always call it. So I remember one time, I think it was 2000. Geez, I don't know. But he was younger, right? And I go. He helps out, and especially during pregame and stuff like that. And we'd work with, go out there with the kickers, catching stuff, and then all of a sudden I'm upstairs because I was calling the game from upstairs. And it's like the Eastern Final, and it's going nuts. And he's out there catching kickoffs right before the game, with I can't even remember who it was, and it was probably Justin. It was probably Justin Metlock, and I was like, what the heck is he doing down there? He's supposed to be back over here, And it's a tremendous honor, and love seeing the boys and my wife being able to walk through that door, and be a part of it, truly be a part of it. And it's a lot of fun. Of course, once they start telling me, "Hey, Dad, you should have probably called the draw on this play." I don't know how. then maybe I'm going to say, "Hey, listen, you can't come in the building anymore." But they haven't done that yet. I say that yet.
That's so fun, and it's always enjoyable to have those great moments. And Tom, I want to thank you so much for having been on today's episode. It was a super enjoyable time. It was a great pleasure to be able to talk football and family and about the different ups and downs of being a coach, the challenges you embrace, and the great nature of the game of football. It's just truly incredible, and I think I speak for a lot of people when I say, we miss the CFL so much, and to be back in the field in 2021 is what we're all hoping for.
Oh yes, and I appreciate you asking me. The game of football, and specifically the Canadian Football League, has given myself and my family a lot of things, and even the Hamilton Tiger Cats have been home, and can't thank them. Now it's time to get 2021 and get it rolling, and have the season and have the Grey Cup here. We're certainly looking forward to it.
Well, everyone, thank you so much for listening to today's episode with offensive coordinator of the Hamilton Tiger Cats, Tommy Condell.